I have watched and reviewed countless films and web shows in the Times of India on my radio station and right here on my YouTube channel. Crime thriller, as you can tell, is my favorite genre, and since childhood, an anatomy of a killer's mind has always fascinated me. Years back, and in fact, even today, what haunts me the most is Dr. Hannibal Lecter and his dealings with Agent Starling in Silence of the Lambs. But I cannot remember a recent film or a show that has left as much impact on my mind as Dahmer, also known as Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. You can read my full review of this show in the Times of India. It's quite chilling, and the link is in the description. Yes, this Netflix biography chronicles the grisly murders of young gay men committed by one of America's most dreaded serial killers, Jeff Dahmer, who wasn't arrested despite multiple complaints against him. Now, psycho serial killer stories are dime a dozen across OTT platforms, and I'm sure we all love binging on them. But from its very first scene, Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan's retelling of Jeffrey Dahmer's unholy crimes tells you that this is not just another serial killer saga. Jeffrey Dahmer's story is symbolic of the 1980s America, an America that on one hand was slowly but surely waking up to accepting its marginalized gay community, with homosexual men living it up night after night under the intoxicating and heady mix of dim lights, loud music, booze and smokes in gay bars and clubs, and living it out their fantasies in the dingy bathhouses that still exist in many Western countries even today. But on the other hand, this was also the same America that was equally indifferent to the voices of its black and homosexual people. Their life only existed in the dark. Like Reverend Jackson, played by Nigel Gibbs, says in the show, Dahmer murders are a metaphor for all the social evils that plague our nation. Bad policing, underserved communities, the low value we assign our young black and brown men, especially if they happen to be gay. He's telling all of this to one of the privileged white elected leaders of Milwaukee, a town that has felt the full force of Jeff Dahmer's diabolical designs on gay black men. He lured into his dingy apartment and did the unthinkable with them. From spiking their drinks and knocking them unconscious to cutting them into pieces and cooking them up in boilers. There is nothing left to imagination in Dahmer's dark world of dead bodies and necrophilia. Now, among the many shows and films made on Dahmer's criminal exploits, this one is perhaps the most riveting, because it delves deep not just into the psyche of its killer, but also into the lives of his victims, who are not just a number here. They are real people, with real families who love them and who long for them after they go missing. Its lengthy and detailed episodes are executed with simmering emotions of the victims and their families, juxtaposed with Dahmer's own struggle with his dysfunctional parents, and of course, the thrill of an edge-of-the-seat crime thriller that is full of shocks and surprises. And it happened when most of us were in the world, we were alive, but it also went unnoticed for over 10 years until Dahmer's arrest in 1991. So what really leaves an impact is the wider injustice that plays out in the form of racism in America. This is captured through some very nuanced and often very obvious gestures from the police and the lawmakers. It then begs the question, just how bad did the black folks have it back then? This is the kind of a show that can rake up Black Lives Matter protest all over again in America. Take for example, the story of Glenda Cleveland, played brilliantly by Niecy Nash, who is Dahmer's unfortunate neighbor. While some have actually gone ahead and disputed her existence, but in the show, she's seen complaining incessantly about Dahmer to the police, but her pleas fall on deaf ears always. At one point, she almost rescues a young teenage victim of Dahmer, but the police actually hands over the semi-conscious kid back to Jeff Dahmer in front of Glenda. That is so heartbreaking because it happened for real. Oftentimes one also wonders if Glenda could have done more to save the victims of Dahmer being sliced and diced next door, rather than just calling 911 and complaining to local police who clearly were not wired to listen to her. A conventionally good-looking and blonde Evan Peters plays the mysterious Jeff Dahmer to making a pretty good case for why an average American cop or judge in those days would exonerate him in a heartbeat. Obviously, his typically American good looks and white pedigree were enough for them to give him a clean sheet despite all the telltale signs of blood on his hands, and also a damning police record that was ignored so conveniently. To be honest, that is just as blood-curdling as Dahmer's crimes. To say that the show has hit source material is like stating the obvious. Add slick cinematography, sepia-toned theme of the 80s, a mystical background score, and a talented cast, and you have a surefire winner. But to be able to engage the viewers for 10 long episodes while elaborating on various aspects around such macabre crimes is a balanced feat that creator Ryan Murphy achieves with a killer expertise. Have you watched Dahmer on Netflix? If not, then please do. If yes, then let us know what you felt after watching it. Also, which story hit you the most? For me, it was the story of Dahmer's deaf and mute victim Tony Hughes and his close-knit and religious black family that did not deserve this grief, much like any of Jeff's victims and their families. But in case of Tony, the sheer impunity with which he went out looking for love from men despite his special abilities and carried himself like an absolute queen who deserves to be treated well was so endearing and commendable. I found his love story with Jeff so heartwarming. You really wanted to work because it's a coming together of two people who can perhaps fix and fulfill each other. But clearly, Dahmer was way too damaged to allow himself the luxury of such true love. It's full of despair, but also so well articulated on screen. You can read my full review of this show in the Times of India. You can connect with me directly and chat with me on Instagram and on Facebook. We can talk about this show or any other stories that we've done. Of course, like, share, subscribe and hit the bell icon if you find our videos worth it. Connect with me on Twitter if you want. I'm available there as @Ronak Kotecha. But as always, even if you don't do any of these things, thank you so much for watching this one. Please take care of yourself and those around you. Jai Hind.